Hey Thursdeightians! This episode of Thursdeighties is brought to you by Anthology for Books, a brand new independent bookstore in my hometown of Geneseo, Illinois. Anthology for Books isn't just a place to buy books. It's a quirky, fun destination where people come to hang out, make human connections, and discover great stories. You can find them online at anthology4, that's the number 4, books.com. anthologyforbooks.com. We're also brought to you by drivebydogooders.org, helping serve the needs of the homeless population and their pets in and around Skid Row in Los Angeles for nearly 10 years. drivebydogooders.org. Well then, 80s friends, there are moments in history that represent turning points in the evolution of our species. 65 million years ago, it was an asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, paving the way for the rise of mammals and Homo sapiens several million years later. In 1600 BCE, the Minoan civilization was wiped out by the eruption of the volcano on Thera, erasing technological and mathematical advances that, hypothetically, could have meant reaching the moon by the 17th century. More recently, in 1976, filmmaker George Lucas began production on Star Wars, a story about a boy, a girl, and a universe. When I was 3 or 4 years old, and that's the early 70s, for those of you who haven't yet guessed my age, the original Star Trek series entered syndication, which meant that every night around 5 p.m., my older sister and I could tune in and watch one of the 79 original Star Trek episodes that were produced featuring Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, Lieutenant Uhura, and the rest of the crew as they boldly went where no one has gone before. I could give the Vulcan salute before I even knew how to write. Time passed and science fiction evolved. Before Star Trek, of course, there was Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, several other sci-fi serials celebrating the dawning nuclear and space age of the 50s and 60s. And sure, 2001 and Planet of the Apes, both of which were made during Star Trek's original run, are now considered part of the tapestry of science fiction movie history. But following Star Trek's exit from primetime, we saw theatrical spectacles like the Andromeda Strain and the Omega Man, Westworld, Soylent Green, Silent Running, THX 1138, Rollerball, Logan's Run, each stamped with that early to mid-70s stylistic flair, filled with earth tones and vibrant hues and pastels, a wood-paneled mix of natural tones and psychedelic, glowy-edged, vibrant colors. I was 8 going on 9 years old in 1977 when Star Wars made its grand entrance into our collective cultural consciousness. I really hope you've had a chance to see it. It's pretty good, and it changed everything. And that's where our Thursdeighties story today begins. You see, my guest today has quickly become one of my heroes for so many reasons, but beginning when I tuned into the Disney Plus documentary series chronicling the storied history of industrial light and magic. The series is titled Light and Magic, and I highly recommend it, by the way, where I listened to her talk about joining George Lucas and the Industrial Light and Magic crew as a production assistant during post-production of the very first Star Wars movie back in 1976. Please join me in giving a warm Thursdeities welcome to Rose Duignan. Hello, Rose.
Very nice to meet you, Billiam.
Thank you so much. I will say this right at the outset. You have changed the world in so many ways, and you continue to change the world. And it's such an honor to talk to you today.
Well, that's very kind of you. I was in the right place at the right time, Billiam.
Well, what's the saying? Hard work, when hard work meets opportunity, that's what luck is.
Correct. That is true.
I probably just turned that quote around completely.
Yeah, it's not like I didn't work hard, for sure. We all did. I was fortunate enough to work with the smartest people on the planet, really, on Star Wars, and then for 25 years continuously at Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
I was just there last night.
Oh,
I was just there last night at where they are now at the Presidio in San Francisco, because it was the retirement party for John Alexander, who's been there 38 years. He started on Howard the Duck
Oh,
uh, of
well,
all
good.
films to start off. But it was really special to see everybody and to hear, the leadership. And John Alexander talk about what was different and what has stayed from the very beginning is this desire to share, this desire to spread knowledge, this desire to help one another. It's so un-Hollywood.
Right. Right.
And I think that's what George Lucas meant with starting his own facility. He didn't want it to be cutthroat. He didn't want it to be Hollywood. And I think that's why he moved it up here, because it's so not Hollywood. It
Right.
is the the opposite of Hollywood, where, in Hollywood, everyone's looking at you and looking over you at the other more important people in the room. And here, they don't care who they're talking to at ILM, and they just want your knowledge, your information, your attitude.
I
And that's
love
what
it.
John spoke of. It was really sweet.
Well, it's so great to hear that because that's the idealized view and vision that I've always had about ILM. So to hear it represented by someone who's been there and has been connected to that group for so long.
As recently as last night. Now, did you watch Light and Magic by Lawrence Kasdan?
Yes, in
Of course you
fact,
did.
that's really probably where I first saw you and then started
Yes.
doing a bit of a deep dive and going, "Oh my God."
Yes, yes, that really brought everything to the forefront again for me. I'd been kind of quietly going about my business, and then that came out, and they gave me so much more credit than I deserve in that. I mean, Richard Edlund in leading up to my intro, he said, "Well, I think it was Rose that turned us around." Oh, come on.
He spoke the truth. He spoke the
Oh,
truth
that's so sweet of
as he
you.
saw it, as he felt it. You can't fault him for that.
No, and I called him later because I watched it on my phone. I got the preview and I was watching it on my phone and I heard him say that. So I called him the next day, Richard Edlund, and I said, Richard, that was so nice of you to give me so much credit. It was such a great, uplifting intro to me, right? And then the show turned its attention toward me, and I think I said something like, "Well, I don't want to say that the furniture was shitty," and they bleeped me on shitty. But obviously we didn't care about that's not where the money was going, was
Right.
on the furniture. But anyway, I called Richard to thank him and I said, have you seen it? And he said, I said, do you get Disney Plus? It's on. Did you get it? Do you see it? And
Yeah.
he said, I don't even know if I have Disney Plus. I'm afraid of my remote. Richard Edlund, Mr. Technology.
Wow. That's so illuminating.
I
He's
know.
a human just like us.
Yes, exactly. And I called Disney, my contacts at Imagine, who produced the film, the series, and I told them make sure Disney sends someone to his house and make sure he has Disney Plus and make sure he gets to see it because he was such a big part of what we were doing in those days.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I watched the series. Honestly, I think I've probably watched it all the way through maybe 5 or 6 times. And I have rewatched in particular the first 2 episodes, maybe the first three out of 6. The second episode in particular, every time it focuses on the team, as they put together this extraordinary film with such camaraderie, but it's more than that, right? And your attempts to poison them all with dry ice in punch.
Oh, was that in the film? I don't even remember that.
Oh yeah. But I've said to more than one person, I think I was born 20 years too late. I belonged there in that time.
Just in 2019, I put on a show for the Motion Picture Academy. It was comparing Rogue One to Star Wars, the all analog Star Wars versus Rogue One all digital. And there were 1,000 names in the credits of Rogue One. There were 75 names in the credits of Star Wars. And I remember John Dykstra on stage saying, out of my whole career, this was the most fun I've ever had.
Wow.
And Bruce Nicholson and I, who also worked on it and stayed forever at ILM, we looked at each other with tears in our eyes. We both agreed, yes, in our entire career, this was possibly because, as I say in the film, we were the Rebel Alliance. I mean,
Yep.
we had an impossible deadline. We had impossible amount of money. I think it was supposed to be done for 1.5 million. It turned out to be 3 million. Big deal, 3 million on a film that's made I don't know how much. Um, but what is so interesting is your subject about the impact of this film on the culture.
Hmm.
Because just 2 weeks ago, I was invited to my granddaughter's class, TK class, and I brought two stormtroopers. Well, to talk about Star Wars.
What?
And I know, they were so lucky. The principal came in and had his photo taken with the stormtroopers. My little granddaughter held hands with the stormtrooper, for the group photo. And all these teachers kept coming in because I asked the kids, well, how many here have seen Star Wars? Not a single child raised their hand. But how many have been to Disneyland? Every kid raised their hand. And that's how they have been introduced
Oh,
to Star Wars. They're too little, they're 5 to
yeah.
see Star Wars, even though the blood and guts is all play. You don't see any blood in that movie. Um, but the fact that it has had such impact
Hmm.
for all these decades. I mean, I see T-shirts at the airport all the time, Star Wars on grandparents and on their grandchildren. Um, I read once, you probably have read this too, Billiam. Like, why did George make this? Like, what possessed him?
Hmm.
And of course, after he nearly died in that car crash when he was, what, 16?
Yeah.
Car wrapped around a tree and he was able to walk out of it without a scratch. And he thought, I've been saved for some reason.
Right.
And he wanted young people to have something larger than themselves to believe in.
Yeah.
And I love that. Something, not God, not a religion, but the force, something larger than themselves to believe in. I think that is the key to why this property, this film has had so much impact and why people continue to respond to it.
Yeah.
Because it's just a goofy movie, I mean, if you watch it, it's irreverent. He was so unhappy with it, which I think is hilarious.
That is very funny.
Yeah, he was so unhappy. He was so unhappy with the lighting. He was so unhappy with the effects. I mean, I get it. I get that when he came home from England, where he had shot the whole thing, and they did all the stage work there. They went to Africa to shoot some of the scenes. But when he got back from England and there was nothing in the can, zero,
Yeah.
that's when he decided to bring in a new team. And he brought in a new production manager and he brought me in. And nobody liked the production manager, God rest his soul. Nobody would listen to him, but they liked me. I was young. They responded to me. I
Yeah.
wasn't bossy. I wasn't egotistical about it. I was just like, whoa, I love organization and I love efficiency.
Right. So that's what struck me. I mean, yes to everything that you said. I also have spent, a lot of time reading Joseph Campbell and I've, of course, interviews with George Lucas and with Joseph Campbell talking about one another. And I think that he tapped into an incredibly rich vein that surprisingly had not really been tapped quite that way before, especially in the era in the, mid to late 70s, where there was an enormous amount of distrust in government, where the world seemed like it was just out of control in so many ways. And this was extraordinary. And it ended with the good guys winning. Oh, of course there were going to be other films where they didn't luck out quite as much, but they won in the end, and they won in the end not because they were super powered, but because they believed in what they were doing and they had a genuinely good purpose. And that good and evil, the clarity of those two things was so well executed across the board. I can't imagine the world without that.
So true, so powerful, right? You're right. It was the young, the Rebel Alliance, the fighters, the people that were resisting the totalitarianism of the who are the bad guys in it?
The Empire?
The Empire, right? The Empire, of course.
Rose. I can't
Resisting
believe
the
you forgot
Empire.
the
Well, I don't
Empire.
even care about the Empire. They're they're over. And I don't know who was the Empire then, maybe the head of 20th Century Fox, I don't know, but he was a believer and
Alan
he
Ladd,
believed
right?
in George Lucas. What's really extraordinary though is how long it has lasted. It's just a movie.
Yes.
What other movie can you think of that has had this kind of impact on our culture?
Right. And continues to
Continues to.
expand its universe in ways that are actually that make sense. So this doesn't feel like everything's just bolted on. And sure, there may be things that yeah, fandom is crazy. But the fact that so many years later, still talking about it, still having genuine conversations, not just fan conversations, but genuine conversations about what it meant, what it was articulating at a time that was needed, and it really does boggle my mind. Star Trek would be one of the only other things that I think about in sort of the same way, in
Right.
that it caught a wave and it has been continuing to ride that wave and expand.
But isn't it funny how it's sort of like the Beatles versus Rolling Stones? You like one or the other. You can't like both. Okay, I have to clarify something here. On IMDb, Internet Movie Database,
Uh-huh.
my name is Patricia Rose Degnan. Okay, that's my full name. I have a sister named Rose Degnan. Her name is Rosemary Degnan. She did all of the behind the scenes Star Trek. I got all her credits. So people, because they just, IMDb just merged our two credits, like Rose
Uh-huh.
Degnan and Patricia Rose Degnan are the same person. And so she never fought it. I never fought it. And so people are amazed. How could you have accomplished so much? Maybe that's why you called me, Billy.
No, well, yes and no. I'm agnostic. I love Star Wars and Star Trek equally. If you could see around my home office, you'd see
Wow.
most everything is one of the two of them. I was 8 when Star Wars came out, and my parents said, "Nope, that's PG. You're not going to see that." It took a year, but
Oh my gosh. So you were 9 when you saw it.
yeah, and I saw it in 1978, and in fact, the poster that stands out for me, the Star Wars poster that stands out for me is the Drew Struzan, and I'm blanking on the other artist, but it looks like a wood marquee. The poster is slightly torn. It doesn't follow the same sort of look and feel that I think any other Star Wars poster did. But that's the one. I have a copy of it hanging in near my theater room. Yeah,
Wow.
it's a
Wow.
gorgeous piece of art.
I had one of the posters, Return of the Jedi. Um, I had the wrap party at my house, and George Lucas and Marsha Lucas came to it. And I'll never forget this, neither will he. At one point, I asked him, because I had a poster signed by John Dykstra, Dennis Murin, Richard Edlund, and I wanted George to sign it. So he said, sure, go get me a pen. Well, I was taking tequila with everybody that arrived at the party because I wanted everyone loose. And so I had a tray of tequila.
Good
And everyone's
host.
like, well, if you take one, I'll take one. So I had too much tequila. And I left him standing there for 45 minutes by the poster. And I'm thinking, why is he following me? Well, I reminded him years later, I said, do you remember when he goes, I remember it vividly.
Oh, oh, that's well. So yes, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. Yes, I came to you first by understanding what your role was there. But again, as I started to sort of dig in a little bit on your bio, your background, what fascinated me, I think, the most, and the reason that I consider you to be one of my heroes is, of course, you worked on a film that is very important to me, but it's much more than that. And when I say you changed the world, I looked at your long list of industry credits. I've read
Oh, good.
some of your writing, your blog posts, what you wrote about retirement, and it just struck me that throughout your career, from when you were in college on, you have always been, first of all, fearless. Second of
Right.
all, incredibly hardworking. And third, you have always pushed the world forward. And I think that's what makes the impression on me that says, I want to talk to Rose. Um, because that's extraordinary. And it changed the world we're in today.
Well, I really thank you for the deep dive. The word fearless, that's the word that we all used as the groundbreaking part of working at ILM. It was a fearlessness that everyone had. Like, sure, I can do that. Oh, planes going like this, with the hands. John Dykstra talks about it. There was a lot of hand flying at his first meeting with George
Yeah.
because of the fearlessness of like, oh yeah, we'll figure that out. And it was pre-children, we get a little more fearful with our children, but I think fearless is a really good word to describe me. And I credit growing up, when you read my book, Who's Patty, that I wrote for, I really wrote, the back says, the purpose of this collection of memories of my life is to offer them to my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren so that they can get a glimpse into who I am even after I'm gone. I wish to stay alive in their memories, if only as an impression.
Okay.
But the fearlessness comes, I think, because I went to 6 elementary schools.
Oh my
When you
God.
go to, because my dad got a scholarship, a Guggenheim Fellowship to go to Africa to write his PhD thesis on colonialism in Africa. So I had to go to a lot of different elementary schools. And and some of them were British, where they beat you and stuff. So that was a different. I write about that in here,
Mm,
but that's not why I was fearless. I think it was a fearlessness because I'm not afraid of people. I'm not afraid to tackle new situations. I'm like, I sit back, I watch, and then I figure out how I can contribute. And that level of fearlessness I really credit to my parents. My level of confidence is really high. Like, I just feel like, oh, I can solve any problem.
yeah.
So whatever you throw at me, I'm going to solve it. And I'm going to do it in a way that, I don't know, people really like me. Usually, if you're the boss, they don't like you. But because they realized it was all about the work, it was never about me trying to be the boss of them. It was about how are we going to get this job done? How
Right.
are we going to figure this out? And then I gave the creatives room to figure things out and let them have their, takes, etc., to figure it out. At some point, I remember some guy saying, "You had to actually pry me off the set." It was done. The reel was done. It was locked. We're done. You can't reshoot that. It was like a waste of time. So I sent him home to his wife.
Wow.
People cared so much. I remember Warren Franklin was my assistant, and he went on to become, when I refused to become general manager of ILM because I had 3 kids, I didn't want to put in the extra 20 hours a week that would take. And so he became general manager, and he got sent to Stanford Leadership School or something. And he said that everyone laughed at him when he said, "Yeah, our problem is that everyone tries too hard and everyone wants everything too perfect." And that's what all the other business leaders were trying to get, is that level of perfection, that level of commitment that we just had.
Yeah.
At our facility, it was just like, you know, expected that you would stay late and work hard and find a solution to the problem.
Well, and
And
everyone there, like that A, that's what they signed up for. B, they were passionate about it. So it was not like it was violating anybody's boundaries between personal life and work. This was what they wanted to do.
correct, correct. Although I have to admit, last night, it really bothered me to hear that production managers, because now they have every time zone, that
Sure.
they have India
Right.
facility at ILM, they have Vancouver facility, so their time zones, they are working 24/7 basically,
Yeah.
because of the time zone situation. And I'm a huge fan of job sharing.
Hmm.
Like, why wouldn't they have 2 production managers on every job? Why would you just have one and expect them? Because that's not a balanced life. And you'll know if you studied my life. My greatest accomplishment at ILM was starting the daycare center.
Yeah. That
And
that drew my attention big time.
yeah, well, you have kids, see.
Yep.
And before we had kids, we didn't need a daycare center. It was like, yes, we were committed. We were 100% committed. We just wanted to work. Those were my friends. I didn't have outside activities, it was just all work.
Yeah.
And it was so satisfying when it became this huge hit. And then I stayed with the same group of people and kept working. But once we had kids, I remember standing in front of a company meeting, and I had a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old on my hands, and I was pregnant. And I said, I want to have your babies. And everyone started laughing. And nobody signed up for daycare. I said, we have to have daycare. We need a daycare center. But luckily, the president of Lucasfilm at the time, his name was Doug Norby, and he came from Fairchild, where it was the first daycare in Silicon Valley. And so he authorized the company to expend, I don't know, 50 grand to start it. And within a month, and ever since then, it's been a waiting list.
Fantastic.
For now, 40 something years later, 37 years later, there's still a wait list. And Disney wanted to shut it down during COVID or right after, because Disney bought Lucasfilm, and they were like, wow, this is prime real estate. We could do a conference center here instead of on-site daycare. And George Lucas himself got involved and said, no, 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 bad idea. If you don't have enough people because of COVID, then open it up to all the other businesses at the Presidio. Don't shut it down. Really bad public relations.
Right.
And plus, this is a great thing to have for a company, because what Norby knew was that if your kid is happy in daycare, someone can offer you 25% more money. You're not leaving. Nope.
And we'll be right back. The holiday season is upon us. What a great time to treat someone you love to the gift of reading, while also supporting a fantastic independent bookstore. Anthology for Books isn't just a place to buy books. It's a quirky, fun destination where people come to hang out, make human connections, and discover great stories. For those of us who grew up in the 1980s, remember the magic of discovering a great book or a favorite new comic at your local shop. Remember the smell of the books, the creak of the floor, the weird, wonderful people behind the counter. Well, through Anthology for Books, my friends Beth and Jim Nyland have brought that all back. Whether you're into the classics, the latest bestsellers, or something a bit more offbeat, Anthology has something for everyone. The best part? You don't have to be in Geneseo, Illinois to experience the magic. You can do business with them online at anthology4, that's the number 4, books.com. anthologyforbooks.com. But if you do find yourself passing through the charming little town of Geneseo, just off of I-80 a few miles east of the Mississippi, Beth and Jim would love for you to stop by, say hello, and join their community of book lovers. Remember, at Anthology for Books, it's all about good reading and great relationships. Check them out online at anthologyforbooks.com. Anthology, the number 4, books.com, where great people discover great stories, just like in our wonder years of the 1980s. Well, and again, I say, when I talk about your impact on the world and knowing that story, that was way ahead of its time, especially, I'm guessing, in the industry that you were in.
Right.
It was a very prescient approach to, how do I take care of the people that do the work versus
Right.
how can I get 10% more out of them? Rather,
Right.
it approached the question from a human point of view.
And I think it starts at the top. And I think George Lucas and the company established that this was a family dynamic, that yes, before you had kids and we expected you to work all these hours, but now we want you home. When I got pregnant with my first child, George handed me a book about self-esteem for children and said, I don't want to see you around here for 5 years. And I said, well, thank you, but you can afford not to work for 5 years. I cannot afford to not work for 5 years.
Yeah.
But he ended up giving me a small piece of Return of the Jedi, which was like worth 100 grand.
Yeah.
So I took off a whole year
Oh,
to be
amazing.
home with my baby. And that was huge, to have that whole first year with her. That was, that's the kind of company that it was. I think it still is. Like I talked to the head of production, or the head of the whole company, Lynwen Brennan is her name,
Mhm.
and she's British. And she said they didn't go through what was very common in the last year was the huge layoffs, 30% in games, 30% at Pixar, 30% across the board in visual effects companies.
Ouch.
And she said we didn't have to do that because we had just expanded to all these other countries. And so our headcount was a little more flexible.
Yeah.
And as long as we didn't spend more money on the work, and we didn't, we were able to keep. And I saw so many older faces last night at John Alexander's retirement party, people that have been there for 30 plus years and still they miss having everyone come in because nowadays it's like
Yeah.
2 days a week you're allowed in, whereas Disney is 4 to 5 days a week. But still in the Bay Area, it's like bridges, etc. Um, People aren't coming in, and people are missing that.
Yeah.
William, people miss that. They miss, it's not just camaraderie, it's actual knowledge being passed along. Like,
Yep.
oh, how did you composite that? I couldn't figure it out. And you learn from someone maybe who's a senior.
Yeah.
And you do that not when they're at home doing that by themselves, but
Right.
in person. But I give a lot of credit to the company for A, not laying everybody off, but B, caring about their people, other than their production staff, who apparently works 24/7.
Well, yeah, we're about to go on 5 years of this strange new world of post-COVID times, and I will say that I didn't know what I had until it was gone. And
Yeah.
and I'm somebody that often says I am an introvert who masks as an extrovert. So when I was in the office and for the 30 years of my career, whatever office I was working in, I would still have to occasionally go and sit in a dark room and kind of recharge a little bit because, people energy was a lot. But once I had none of that human contact, then I realized how much my batteries relied on the charge of others and their energy. And I miss it every day.
Wow, that is the definition of an extrovert. I myself am totally an extrovert, and I am so miserable being retired.
Mm,
Which the end of this book is the book covers the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2010. It goes to 2021. And that's pretty much, that was my last party, but I'm the party giver. And I love doing it. I send personal invitations to every single person, even if it's 400 people on my guest list, because A, I don't want to go into their spam, but B, I love it when they write me back and
yeah.
say, thank you for doing this. Yes, I'll be there. It's just so great. But being an extrovert and being retired, I don't highly recommend it. Like to John, I said, what are you going to do? What are you doing? And, but 50, 60 hours a week, that's too much. But it would be nice to have 20.
Right.
It'd be nice to still be helpful and still, I mean, I can clean out drawers, and stuff like that. I volunteer at the golf club. I play golf. I volunteer twice a week and drive around in a car at a beautiful regional park golf course. It's
Hmm.
great. I work in a classroom. I deliver Meals on Wheels to housebound people.
That has to take an emotional toll.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Hmm.
But anyway, you need to ask me about this. I'm going to send you this book too. It's
Yes.
a diary. I published this diary of my time in the Army.
While you were at basic training and
While I was in basic training, I went undercover right after Battlestar Galactica. Um, I was at Universal at the time, and I saw a photograph of a woman handing her baby off to her husband and reaching for an M16. And it was on the cover of Time magazine. And I thought, how interesting. Baby makers being trained to be killers, basically,
yeah.
being in the Army. So I thought, how interesting. So I went to Universal, head of production, and I pitched the idea that I could do this undercover story about men and women being trained for the first time ever in the military together, right down to platoon level. And so I went to DC, and I remember seeing this really handsome general, and I was like 26. And I pitched him on this idea, and he wanted to go for it because the Army really, it was 79. It was really a few years into the volunteer Army, and they were
Yeah.
not getting the best. So he thought, that it could attract people. And he turns to this woman, this colonel trainer, and he says, "Well, what do you think, Colonel?" And she said, "Frankly, sir, I think she'd be a pain in the ass." And I was so outraged that she thought that I couldn't get through basic training. So I was on a mission to prove to all the people that I went through basic training with that some women could do it, and I did. It just came down to people that tried hard, were friends and
Yeah.
worked together, and I would have died for those people.
Hmm.
But I made some changes in the Army. I went to DC after I graduated. I had to keep it a secret. That was the one thing. And you'll enjoy my diary, because this diary has is just basically a transcription of my diary. I just changed the names, or used initials.
I can't wait.
Oh yeah, good, good. It was so interesting. It was just a little drama that happened there, but it got turned into Girls with Big Tits Falling in the Mud by the gentleman who wrote If It's Tuesday, This Must Be Belgium. I came home, sold my diary to I think it was ABC at the time. They turned it into that, and I ended up they wanted to put Marie Osmond in my place. Oh my God.
What?
So yeah, I know. So I called George Lucas again. I said, "I'm ready to be a worker again." And I came up and did Return of the Jedi for him. Star Trek, the motion picture I had done, and I did Star Trek 2 up here at ILM, and then we moved into Jedi. Um, but it was the most interesting experience of my life.
Hmm.
Being, I really felt so strong
Yeah.
after going through that. They do a great job in training you.
Sure.
Like I literally would have died for these people.
I spent a little bit of time. I spent about 2 years working around the Army. 2001 to 2003, I worked for an ad agency in Chicago, Leo Burnett. And
Oh yeah.
Leo Burnett had just, a few months before September 11th, they had just won the Army recruiting advertising account. A big part of that was the digital space, web advertising, the website for Army recruiting. So I joined the digital group that was leading all of the web work. And I spent at least a day every week down in Louisville at Army Recruiting Command and around some of the most extraordinary people that I had no idea going in. I had stripes in my head, part of which was filmed in Louisville, but what I encountered was some of the smartest, most dedicated people that I'd ever met or worked with professionally. Yeah, it
Wow.
was such an experience, and I got to meet
Yeah.
some of the most amazing and dedicated people who were part of what they called special missions, like the Army JAG Corps, Army Medical, Army Chaplain Corps, the Army Band, who were just as amazing as their counterparts in the regular Army.
Well, to have an influence on the Army is a big deal,
A
and
huge
attracting
deal.
people to it is a huge deal. But I remember after I graduated, I was invited to DC to address all the training personnel, meaning generals and colonels, and big deal. There was like 60 people in the audience. And I said, "You have to have salad bars," because the women all gained 20 pounds
Oof,
because they were feeding you the same food that they would feed the men.
same shitty food.
And the specialist would pile it on your plate, to punish you, and you had to eat it all. And so the women all gained weight. I said, "You don't want a bunch of fat soldiers, right?" So salad bars got introduced. And I said, "And secondly, get rid of your rape program. The first thing you do for the rape program is dismiss all the men. Big mistake. The men are the rapists, you
Hmm.
know. And then the second thing you do, you show a bunch of movies that tell the woman, well, at least they're not killing you. Just go along with it." I said, "Come on, these are soldiers. Teach them how to jab for the eyes, and, pop out their eyes, and
Right.
go for the throat, and break their nose. I mean, come on." So they did, they got rid of that rape program, and they introduced salad bars. So I feel like I've had long lasting impact on.
Again, changing the world. And that
I
and that's
did,
not
I
and that
did.
and that's not changing the world of film and entertainment. That's changing the world.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Totally. And now I'm quite concerned about the next generation workforce. I have a
Yeah.
website, I have a nonprofit called nextgenerationworkforce.org, and I encourage you to go look at it. What I'm doing, with AI and machine learning, it's really changing the entry level
Yeah.
positions. And as people last night told me, I was mentioning my new mission, and they were saying, well, your entry level jobs are all in Mumbai or Vancouver. They have to, young people have to be willing to do 5 years overseas to become proficient at what they do, maybe compositing or whatever it is they do. So what I'm trying to do is look for the best and the brightest students. I've reached out to all these schools
Hmm.
and asked them to recommend 3 to 5 of their best students who are seniors, and I will find them a mentor. I have 65 amazing mentors. Just, I mean, Academy where people like John Dykstra who say, well, I really don't know the latest software. I'm like, you know what? It's your eye, buddy. It's your eye and
Yeah.
your name. And of course, I won't put their names on the website because everyone's going to want John Dykstra or
Sure.
John Knoll or, one of the people that have agreed. But they're humble. They're humble people
Right.
that are, and all I'm saying is once a month, spend an hour looking at the students, reel and resume and
Hmm.
improve both those things. And then if you love the student, of course, a phone call on your behalf or let them use your name on their resume. Oh my
Right.
God, here's a reference. So that's my game plan. I haven't given up yet on the next generation because we need them.
Yeah.
But the Visual Effects Society just moved too slowly for me in terms of I'm on the board
Hmm.
and I'm on the local Bay Area board as well. But I recommended a student chapter because I think we need student volunteers. We
Oh,
need to get
yeah.
the next generation. And they're just going to talk about it for 2 years. No. So that's why I just started this nonprofit and I'm going to just move ahead because I was told by my daughter paid for me to get some sort of reading, like a horoscope reading.
Okay.
And the woman looked at my horoscope. I told her when I was born, what date and everything. She goes, "Oh dear." I said, "What?" She said, "Well, let me put it this way. You are a ball of fire on an arrow hurtling through space. No one can stop you." And that's how
That's
I feel.
that's
I
the
feel like
best
a ball of
reading
fire
ever.
on an arrow hurtling through space. And, I should listen more to people and maybe take more time to think about things. But I'm an action-oriented person.
Yeah.
And I think that has served me well in my career and even now, and maybe not so much now that I'm retired, but like that blog that you read, I think we're setting a trend. Group living is a trend. It's so much cheaper. It wards off loneliness,
Oh
which
my
is
God.
really a killer of so many people.
It is.
Loneliness leads to over drinking and taking drugs and all that stuff that's not good for you as an older person.
Right.
You have to be a little more cautious. And so I know group living has helped me, and I did about a dozen blogs about it. You read one of them, but at a certain point, yeah, that's enough.
Sure.
Enough of that. But now my latest thing is next generation workforce and helping them get jobs. I would love to help them.
I that's amazing. And I think that you've dialed into something that is really easy to overlook, especially in the time we're in, where I think a lot of that incoming workforce, the people who are the younger people who are moving in, they get dismissed from the perspective of, hey, I had to struggle and work hard to get my first thing. You will too. That's just how it is. And I think there's a critical distinction between you're going to have to work hard and build your reel and build your body of work, and good luck. I'm throwing you into the deep end, it's all up to you. Having others to advise you who have been there and who are human beings, is that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Totally. I totally agree with you, Billiam. The the thing is, I'm carrying on the tradition that we started, I think, at ILM, or that I experienced at ILM, which was helping people
Right.
become more proficient, helping someone, not just throwing them in the deep end and letting them sink or swim, but rather helping them. And that's my thinking, is that all these mentors, it's time to give back, people.
Yeah.
It's, we're older now. I have some young mentors, but mostly I have older.
Be right back. Hydration plus hygiene equals human dignity. Thursdeighties is sponsored by drivebydogooder's.org. With no overhead, no agenda, and pure giving, Drive By Do-Gooders provides basic human necessities to those living in downtown Los Angeles and homeless encampments around the city, particularly the elderly and disabled and their pets. Founded in 2015 by Licia Naff, with the goal of filling in the gaps where public welfare services fell short, Drive By Do-Gooders has been doing exactly that. They drive to the needy and displaced, handing out essentials, water, wipes, socks, snacks, feminine products, masks, tarps, blankets, and more to those who have little or no access to basic human needs. Drive By Do-Gooders' mission is to help as many people as possible, bringing relief to those who need it most. The homeless epidemic can seem overwhelming, but even small gestures can go a long way to those who are in need and need to find more permanent solutions. You can help Drive By Do-Gooders to continue this important work and expand their reach. Go to drivebydogooder's.org to learn more and donate, because hydration plus hygiene equals human dignity. drivebydogooder's.org.
I started wanting the VES to get more involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, now, of course, that's a dirty word, but at this point, I don't care who they are. If they're women, but I'm getting a lot of female names, and that's interesting because I've got this guy doing research named David Erling, and it hasn't changed, Billiam. It's still 20%, 21% female in our business, and half those jobs are production jobs. And a lot of them, I looked into it when I was doing that Academy show. I really wanted women represented. And so I asked these two women who had been both asked to be compositing supervisors. They could even job share on Rogue One. And they both passed on it because they said, we already spend 50 hours a week at work. We're not spending 10 more because you need to spend 60 hours if you're supervising people and getting that title. And I'm like, wow, that's really only 30 each. No, they said, no, it would be 60 each. We would each be there 60 hours. And I thought, God, and that's what USC study told us, was that was a reason that women have stayed in such a low position other than production. And so many of those women are unmarried and no kids.
Yeah.
But it's really a problem, which is why I think job sharing is an elegant solution.
Right.
I don't know why people are resisting it so much. You don't pay overtime. And yeah, you have to pay 2 health benefits, but no overtime? Come on. You're giving them a balanced life, and doesn't that have value?
And the dividends that pays downstream, it's, those are easy to overlook, but they're real.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
loyalty to you as a company or an employer, or an understanding of how the business works that then can be applied to the next production and the next and the next, and creates that whole next generation of experts.
Totally. Totally. You know, there's one part of my life that we skipped over, which is when I got my MBA
I wanted to talk about that so bad.
at University of California, Berkeley.
In your mid 50s, you went back to
Yes,
school.
I went back to school. I graduated like when I was 58. And that was so interesting because what happened was I really put a lot of credence in New Year's Day. I feel like New Year's Day is like a chance to start over every year. And this particular New Year's Day, I was like you said, 55, 56 maybe. I had just asked my husband to leave and he had moved to New York. And I thought, wow, I can do whatever I want now. I don't have to check it with anybody. I can
Yeah.
spend that money on school if I want to. And I'd had this dream where I had really good haircut, really good shoes, and a really good watch on. And I was on a private jet. And I thought, what do I need to get there? And I realized, oh, an MBA. So I went online and I looked and I found the perfect program at Cal. It was a special program that was a Berkeley Columbia program
Yeah.
for middle managers who want to become C-level managers. So I was at Expression Digital Arts College at the time, again, helping young people get their foot in the door, getting jobs. That was my position there. And it was kind of falling apart at the time. Expression was falling apart. So I thought, I should go to school. I should go get an MBA.
Hmm.
And I ended up winning the Most Distinguished Student Award because I convinced George Lucas to come and talk to the class. I'm
Oh my
sure that's
God.
why.
Yeah. Well,
He
okay. So
came and
what? You
talked.
stack the deck. That's okay. You get the award.
He talked to 75 people. It was great. And I got to introduce him, and I told this story that I remembered from way back when on Star Wars, when I said, I was trying to figure out why George Lucas would agree to come. You know, why would he come to my class and talk to you all? And then I remembered I helped him write the opening of Star Wars. And he looked so shocked. You know that line, a long time ago in a galaxy far, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Rings a bell.
Well, he was sitting in my office on Star Wars. I was late. He was staying at the Universal Hotel or something, and he would stay late. And I was stamping storyboards or something. And he said, how does this sound? And he reads, a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And I said, I don't like the long, long, far, far. He does it again, a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away. I said, just try flipping it. So he did, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Bingo, says I. So that's what ended up in the movie. Well, he had no memory of that. And everyone just started howling with laughter. But he talked to our class about how you got to follow your heart, and the rest will follow, and, you know, all these platitudes. And it was easy for him to say as a rich, successful man, right? But I did win an award. And after that, I started back the day I left. I started back doing my old work, which was at Industrial Light and Magic,
Yeah.
but they had spun off. So it was now called Kerner Optical.
Okay.
And we did miniatures and blew them up. It was so fun. And that was still being done in those days. That was 2007, I graduated. So that was like 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. For 5 years, I worked there.
And when you say
But
miniatures, you were blowing up, you mean like physically?
yeah, physical blowing up, because still it you still couldn't reproduce that using computer graphics.
Right.
It still looked a little phony. Fire looked a little phony. So we would build large scale models and blow them up. And I would always do the sign of the cross before, and the producers would look at me like, "Don't do that. What are you doing?" I said, "Well, it can't hurt. It can't hurt." Because we had one try. You know, you
Yeah.
didn't have three of these models to blow up. You would build one thing and blow it up.
I've
So
always thought about that when watching behind the scenes stuff, especially for like the original Star Wars, thinking, what would have happened if, God forbid, one of the stands fell over? Like,
I know.
what'd you do?
I know. Well, Rocketeer, it happened where the explosions didn't go in the sequence they were supposed to, from the back to the front or front to the back, whatever.
Of the
And so they had to
dirigible?
the dirigible. So they had to rebuild the dirigible and eat it and eat it and,
Ooh.
you know, pay for it. And it had to be rebuilt in like days. So people worked 24/7 to get that thing built.
Oy.
And then it happened one other time in a film that I was involved with. I can't even remember, but a guy came up from LA to watch, and it just never exploded. The charge just didn't go off. And it turned out they cut that out of the movie so that we didn't have to redo it. But it didn't make a lot of sense in the film at the time. But I recall, okay, this is a really important story. When I was at Kerner Optical, this guy came in, he bought the company. It was bullshit. Anyway, he wanted to take the company bankrupt. And so I was booking work, right? I was executive producer. I was booking work. And I was told, well, we're doing chapter 11 or whatever, chapter 7, one of those. And I wrote an email. I replied but I replied all.
Oh God, Rose.
I know. And I didn't mean to. It was just like, we have to tell these people that we're declaring, bankruptcy and we can't take this work, without working with them and working out a detailed, delivery schedule, blah, blah, blah. And I got a call within like a minute from the producer saying, this is above my pay grade. You're going to get a call from the head of the studio. I'm like, oh shit. That's when I walked down to the guy's office. I said, I would totally fire me. I have no problem being fired. So just know that I hit reply all. I didn't mean that so the woman who ran the studio calls me up and she said, well, now we trust you 100%. We're not pulling the show if they don't fire you. If you stay on and you deliver me a weekly schedule and tell me what's going to happen and how much I need to pay, we'll do the show. So I had to go back to my boss and say, yeah, you can't fire me or
Oh,
you lose the show.
what a moment in time. That's a great
Oh
story.
my God.
Because we've all done it. We've all done that reply all that
Oh,
we didn't mean to. Well, I guess I'll just speak for myself. I've done a reply all, a few of them that I did not mean to, and spend a lot of time clawing back goodwill and trust.
oh, it was, I really should call that woman and tell her that story because she, meant a lot to me. It was, I don't even remember the movie, but it was my final movie there. And then I quit myself because
Yeah.
the company going bankrupt. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, of course not. That's and feeling like someone is intentionally driving it into the ground.
Yeah.
It,
To
it
sell off the parts.
yeah, what kind of motivation would you have to put in
Yeah.
the kind of time you had to keep building?
Yeah. Yeah. I did not
That's too
want to
bad.
do that. So I left and got a beautiful C3PO out of it. They gave me a little going away gift.
Ah,
Yeah.
well, I guess if you're going to get a going away gift, a C3PO, maybe an Oscar.
C3PO made by, people. Oh, the Oscar story. Oh my God. Well, John Dykstra probably won't hear this podcast, so I'll tell this.
Oh, I'm going to call him up after this and say, you got to listen to this. I don't know him, but
Okay, good. Um, he doesn't like this story, but it's kind of like it's true. Like,
okay.
why would I make this up? Okay, so we're cut back to Star Wars. And John is trying to decide who to bring to the Academy Awards for Star Wars. And he lands on me because I contributed so much. I was a part of it. I'm not his girlfriend, but okay. So he's going to bring me. So I go to the hairdresser, I go to the makeup artist, I'm there. I have a dress, everything's set, and I get a call from his girlfriend and who's now his wife. So, okay, 40 years later, legit 45 years later. She said, well, we made up. So I'm going to the Academy Awards. So I show up anyway,
Oh,
dressed up, dressed to the nines. I'm on the, it was at Chandler Pavilion. I'm there with my sister, so I have corroboration.
hmm.
We park somewhere, we walk in, we're with the crowd, and I yell when he arrives, John Dykstra, you son of a bitch. And he kind of looks out, but he doesn't really hear, and he goes in and police immediately come, put me in handcuffs because there were all these, police around and they're dressed like normal people.
Sure, plainclothesman.
Yeah. So they come over, they handcuff me, they walk me up. I explain the story. They let me go. And it was my birthday. Did I mention that? It was my
Oh,
25th birthday. So I told them all that and they let me go. And ever since then, I dress up for the Academy Awards every single year. I mean, I have footage of myself getting out of a limo, when we had a Lincoln Town car.
that's so cool. Oh my God, what a memory.
Yeah, well, and why would I do that? Why would I make up that story? But I didn't tell it to Industrial Light and Magic, that whole series, because I didn't want to offend John Dykstra when
Aw.
he claims that didn't happen, but it did.
Well, the whole thing is that, and I'll call back to something that you kind of talked about at the beginning of this conversation, which is you don't approach anybody from the standpoint of I'm your boss or I'm better than you or I'm, fill in the blank, but in some way superior. And by investing that bit of humanity in yourself, into the way that you talk to and work with others, it comes back at you tenfold. And who could possibly be offended if Rose has some anecdotes that are both crazy and funny, and maybe a little embarrassing when they're coming from a place of love.
Yes. Yes. And I only tell that story because A, it really happened. And B, John is a really good guy. John Dykstra is a really good-hearted man. And he maybe put it out of his mind because it was disappointing to me not to go to the
Sure.
Academy Awards. I mean, he fucking won the Academy Award that year. I could have been there. That would have been great. But he is still with Cass, his wife,
Yeah.
and they had a beautiful daughter, and she just got married. So,
Aw.
and I'm still friends with them. I saw them recently. I saw them like last 6 months ago.
Well, speaking of acquaintances, I've become fairly good friends with Van Ling.
Oh,
Um,
nice. It's odd that you mentioned him because I just worked with him on a party
yep.
for Bob Abel.
Right.
It
He
was,
told me.
oh, he told you.
So I talked
Okay.
with him on Tuesday night. We had our eighth conversation, and I mentioned to him, I said, I'm going to be talking to Rose
Yeah.
Duignan on Friday, and he goes, I know her. I said,
Yeah.
of course you do. You know
Yeah.
everybody.
He knows
And
everyone.
he mentioned the Bob Abel tribute thing, and of course that's even kind of a neat thing for me because I loved the work that Abel did in commercials back in the 70s and 80s.
Yes, he was remarkable, and really he laid the groundwork for what became visual effects.
Yeah.
And he laid the groundwork for what became computer graphics. And we had this party, Ray Feeney paid for it, and he hired Van Ling. He edited all these pieces, 7 different monitors were playing. It was quite the party. It was the most generous party I've ever organized in my
Wow.
life because I've always asked people to pay $50 to come to one of these parties. But Ray Feeney, he paid about 75 to 80K for this party.
Wow.
And it was at the Academy in the theater because he really believes that people need to be together, that you can't have all these Zoom calls and Zoom meetings, and
Right.
it's not the same thing. And it was so much love in the room. And Van got really excited about doing a whole documentary about Bob Abel. And uh, I introduced him to a couple people that I thought could help.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a small world, isn't it? It is a small world,
It is.
our
And
visual effects
every
world.
time I talk, so Van Ling is one person, Darren Doctorman, um, Jay Worth. If you know Jay, I actually
Uh-huh.
hired him in Chicago 25 years ago as a producer at an ad agency I was working at. And now he's incredibly successful in VFX, and uh,
Yeah.
I feel like everybody knows each other, and every time I talk to someone, they go, "Oh, I know that person you know, and do you know this person?" And it's this constant chain that all
Yeah.
comes back to it's an incredibly close, talented community.
It is, and I wanted to expand. I mean, we're only 5,000 people strong in the Visual Effects Society, but there's like a
Really,
100,000 people that follow VES or that follows, there's like 300,000 that follows the Star Wars saga. So why aren't more of those people in the VES?
it's a great question.
I would love to see it grow, but again, they're very slow to action.
You would think that, especially up and coming, the younger people who are moving into or want to have careers there, um, would attach themselves just to have exposure to others like them. So if you graduated in 2019 and had an active career for the
Right.
past 5 years,
You would be ready. Yeah.
right?
Um, they claim that they're getting more than ever people to join, but it's still maintained at 5,000. It is a worldwide organization.
Yeah,
Um, but I don't know. I think a student chapter, to me, anyone that wins an award by the VES should automatically be a member for free for 1 year. And then if they want to stay, they should pay.
yeah.
So I have all these ideas, but again, I'm pushy. I'm aggressive. They don't
All
appreciate that.
all my favorite things. I grew up in a house with an incredibly smart, genius sister who taught me very early that gender had nothing to do with the quality of work and merit.
What
So
did she end up doing?
she majored in accounting in college and got her MBA and worked in consulting for several years for Price Waterhouse,
Wow.
and then pivoted and decided to give all that up. She went to the seminary and is now a pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. Yeah.
Wow.
She just got
That is quite a
actually she
pivot.
just got ordained last weekend as a pastor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But she's brilliant. Always has been, and very powerful force of nature by
Well,
herself.
and now she'll be able to use that in a much broader way because being a pastor, you really influence your flock.
Yeah.
You get to speak every week. I have a niece that's a pastor, and she's amazing at the influence that she has. But boy, does she work hard.
Yeah.
Every night of the week, she's out
Yeah,
dealing
my
with
my
things.
sister makes me feel like an underachiever. She's 2 years
Yeah.
older than I am, and but you know what? So do you. I was, looking at your list of accomplishments, but also what you're doing now. I mean, you're still producing stuff. You're still like your volunteer work. I am a slacker by comparison.
Yeah, I feel like a slacker too.
Oh,
I
goodness,
need to do
Rose.
more. I'm used to doing a lot, and it's really hard for me to adjust to retirement. I like to be busy every minute, and I'm not. And maybe I will be once I put mentors, mentees together. Thank you for that. I will take that to heart.
Well, I know you got to do what feeds your soul, and if accomplishing and continuing to move forward and moving other people forward is what does that, of course,
Yeah.
do it until you can't.
Yeah, yeah. No, I wrote so many books during COVID because I wrote two children's books. I wrote these two books, Who's Patty and this basic training diary.
Bikini
Um,
Bonini, you have to talk about Bikini Bonini.
Bikini Bonini. Oh, thanks for bringing her up. Yeah, she's a book that I used to tell my children stories and my nieces and nephews stories about Bikini Bonini, who's really me, but she's just this woman, a young girl, 11, who thinks her body is a work of art. She's huge. She's like 6 foot tall. She weighs 250 pounds. She's 11, but she just believes in herself and she
Oh,
believes she can accomplish anything. And she lives with her brothers and her aunt, who's a witch, and they move into the old neighborhood. And just every adventure she has, I just start and I just make them up. And my grandchildren love them,
of
love the
course.
stories, and love the book. And I had it illustrated. It was going to be, I worked for a while on a stop motion TV series called Bump in the Night.
Mm.
And I wanted her to be a character on Bump in the Night, but the two directors were not open to that. And so
Aw.
I pitched it on my own. And, I've had a lot of failures, Billiam.
Uh,
If my
but
grandchildren love it, that's not a failure.
yes, the litmus test is, are the grandchildren happy and do they enjoy it?
That's
Um,
right.
and
That's
I'm
right.
gonna prognosticate for a minute. Bikini Bonini is going to be something outside of just the books, a series, a movie, something. I guarantee it.
It should be. It should be. I mean, just the basic self-esteem issue is so huge with
It
kids
is.
nowadays. And believing in yourself is so huge. And I think that circles us right back to Star Wars. We believed we could accomplish it. We believed
I love that.
that under the direction of George Lucas, we could deliver. And that gave us a fearlessness that has carried forth and continues to this day at ILM.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And you've heard the saying, "Youth is wasted on the young." I think that that's a frame of mind. I think that, and you express this, you believe you can get it done. I love the spirit of thinking that throughout your life and believing it. Um, and it took me 50 years to get comfortable enough in my skin to be that way, to be like, no, I'm not worried about it. I can do it, or it'll get done. But
Awesome.
I think that's the key to staying mentally young for your entire life.
Totally true. Like if you give up, it's no option.
Right.
There's no option. You can't give up. You'll just get sick and die.
Right. Well, I want to be respectful for your time, and you've given me almost an hour and a half, and I so
All
appreciate
right.
that. I
So happy to do it.
And this was as much as I was expecting this to be wonderful, it's 10 times.
Oh, good, William. I'm glad you like it. And I will send you these books and you're welcome to keep them.
Well, that's great. And I will send you your
My goodie bag.
swag
Yes,
bag. Yes.
please do.
And it includes actually a book that I love, by Studs Terkel. And
I love Studs Terkel. Working? What did he write?
well, it's actually the Studs Terkel Reader. So it's a sampling of all of his books.
Fabulous. Oh, thank you so much. I love him.
I do too. He was largely my inspiration for this, which is listening to people talk about who they are, what they've done in their lives from the perspective of, I'm a human being just like you. Even you've accomplished and you continue to accomplish great things. You're a human being who represents quite well the spirit of what it means to be human.
Totally love that in the swag bag. Love Studs Terkel. I'm always asking people, well, where were your grandparents born? Because I think so much, and people don't know. People don't even know where their grandparents were born. What?
Yeah.
I think, although I did learn from 23andMe, I have more Neanderthal in me than the average person.
Hey.
Maybe that's the secret.
Well, Rose, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Nice to meet you, and good talking to you.
Good talking to you as well.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye. You know, I've heard the saying, never meet your heroes. So far in my life, I haven't been disappointed. And this conversation with Rose Duignan keeps that streak alive. Let me just say that Rose was so kind, so generous with her time, and I was so excited to talk with her that I forgot to ask my usual questions. What's your favorite 80s film? What's your favorite 80s TV show? What is your favorite 80s band or performer? And you know what? I don't regret it at all. I have to imagine that Rose encounters fans of Star Wars or any of the myriad of films that she's worked on in her time at ILM or Tippett Studios or Kerner Optical, who are pushy and demanding like she owes them something because she worked on films that they love beyond measure. Well, regardless, she gave freely of her time and was every bit as lovely a human being as I could have imagined. She's a treasure, no two ways about it. Here's my ask of all of you, in honor of the amazing Rose Duignan. Go to nextgenerationworkforce.org and look for ways that you can guide and mentor the young people we are relying on for our future. Your wisdom, your experience, especially those of you who get all of my references in this podcast and have experienced the 80s firsthand, will make all the difference. nextgenerationworkforce.org. Go now. Okay. Well, thank you so much for spending time with Rose and me. It's a conversation I won't soon forget, and there's a lot more goodness coming from the Thursdeighties podcast. So subscribe today. Make sure the 80s don't pass you by. Later, my friends.